As it's Manga time once again, I'm here to bring you my review of Bleach 670, The Perfect Crimson. And at first I was thinking to myself, when I saw the title, I was like, is Urahara going to appear in this chapter? Because Crimson Princess, Benihime, it didn't even occur to me that it was referring to Daigoren Hyorinmaru being Great Crimson Lotus, I think it is. So this chapter is interesting, let's just say. I would say I'm a little concerned about maybe offending some people, but then I don't think I have that many Hitsugaya diehards in my viewer base. I'm pretty sure most of you guys are kind of on my level when it comes to this sort of thing. So I'm going to be as fair as possible. So let's get on with the chapter review. Okay? Okay. So it starts off with Kenpachi just completely bifurcating Gerard in his Bankai, of course, which still is unnamed. And Gerard goes crashing to the ground, and Kenpachi's just standing there as blood's going everywhere. It looks pretty cool. And now, at first I thought, oh, Kubo's actually going the route of having Kenpachi just go full on crazy and try and kill everyone. And the captains have to try and stop him, because Hitsugai's like, we should maybe keep our distance. And then Byakuya says, just look at him, he doesn't seem to have any consciousness left. However, Zaraki suddenly realises before they do that something is amiss, and he jumps backwards and then roars in what I have to be completely honest is a pretty poorly drawn panel of Kenpachi. It actually looks nothing like him. But yeah, he roars and goes mental, and suddenly the two halves of Gerard rise up behind Hitsugaya and Byakuya in what is actually a pretty cool panel, I have to be honest. It's quite a dynamic one. And when I saw this, I was thinking to myself, did I call it? Because what I said last week was that Gerard, both of his halves would become individual Gerards, so there'd be two of them all or something. That's not what happens. Essentially, the opposite happens. They fuse back together again. Gerard's Quincy cross seems to kind of come out of nowhere, in between the halves. Was it in his head? I don't know. I don't know. But it's a cool looking panel because the blood is like circling them, and then it pulls them together. So yeah, that's a weird panel as well. It's a weird panel seeing Gerard's body being pulled back together essentially by light. But it would appear then, I guess, that Gerard is a being of light much in the same way Lil was. So how are they going to kill this guy? Even with what happens at the end of the chapter, you do have to wonder how could they possibly defeat him. A nice little touch as well is that he is still missing his hand. He's still missing the end of his shield after Kenpachi went ham on him last week. Gerard then disappears in a blast of light, and then he reappears in what I think is his Vollstandig, although it's not actually mentioned. I don't know if Manga Stream messed up the translation, because it seems like Gerard gives the Vollstandig's name, but either way, this is actually a very cool double page spread. He's like obviously massive still, but his at first I thought he had a super massive manly beard, and I was like, that's actually quite cool. But it's not that he's got a beard, it's just that his helmet has taken the shape of a beard. So he looks even more Nordic. But I was thinking, like, Kubo could have probably done more with the whole Norse theme. Like, we could have some really cool abilities. And I have to say, I hate the way Gerard's sword looks now. I hate it. It's just drawn so poorly. It's just, I mean, the problem with the Quincy is, a lot of their aesthetics are based on blue light. Because a lot of their stuff is made of reishi. Like Gerard's sword, I assume, is made of blue light. The handle, at least, anyway. So it on paper, it just looks like Kubo's drawn a white space. So yeah, but either way, Gerard looks pretty cool now. He definitely looks 100 times more manly, and his sword appears to generate an arrow at the tip. So I'm guessing his sword is confirmed his bow, much in the same way as Diagram Lil's gun was his. Gerard then fires his arrow, and he fires a lot of arrows actually, and it seems to sever the Zweiter Ast from the Varvelt. And so basically, what I think is happening here is that Gerard has cut the platform is what I was looking for, the platform away from the Varvelt, and so it's beginning to fall down. Although it looks just like it's just the bridge that collapses, but I'm not 100% certain how the thing would stay in the air. Although I say that, it's all floating in the air anyway, so that doesn't really matter. So yeah, the bridge appears to just drop towards the Seirete, and Hitsugaya freezes it. He freezes it onto the side of the building. So he basically managed to stop it from all collapsing, and he says, I managed to mitigate the damage down below. Hitsugaya, by the way, seems to be the only person who's even giving a shit about down below. We then get emphasis on his petals breaking. Okay. However, Gerard is suddenly behind him and he just bats Hitsugaya aside. How Hitsugaya just tanks this, I don't know, but Gerard's looking pretty cool. His wings are totally he does look quite angelic in a way. I think his leggings look a bit ridiculous, I have to be honest. I have to be honest, they look a bit ridiculous. Like, I don't know why he has to have leggings. I don't know why he couldn't have had, like, some, almost like a robe or something to maybe make him look like maybe make him look more like a god, but either way, he is still probably one of the more godlike looking figures we've actually had in the series. Those are the kind of wings that Aizen should have had in his butterfly mode. Then people might not have called him butterflies, and he might have actually looked like an angel. But yeah, these are cool, like actual angel wings. So yeah, Gerard smacks Hitsugaya away, and he then says, God, and then Manga Stream have translated it as God's divine authority, but I think that's the name of his Vollstandig, and it's Aschetonig, I believe, is the name of his Vollstandig. And he says he is the most noble and purest of God's knights. So yeah, I assume he's in his Vollstandig. He doesn't appear to have a halo, which is interesting. And he says, even when facing my mortality, I would still wield my sword in the name of God, at which he then brings his blade down on Kenpachi. Now, this bit is just random as fuck. Kenpachi tries to retaliate, and his arm explodes. It's kind of reminiscent to what happened to Gremmy, I think, is kind of the callback here. So, yeah, we get it's not a flashback, it's like in Kenpachi's mind, basically. But Yachiru looks at his arm and she's like, oh god, I released too much of your power and your body's not yet strong enough to withstand it. And so Kenpachi loses a fucking arm and collapses to the ground, and that's Kenpachi out of the fight, apparently, which is just super random. But basically, yeah, Yachiru causes Kenpachi's arm to explode because she tries to make him too powerful. This is so random. Like, if there was any evidence that Kubo has been shitting on Kenpachi this whole arc, like, this is the culmination of that. Kenpachi is taken out yet again, and this time it's by his own Zanpakuto toe. So that's funny. Kenpachi goes down for the count. I have to admit, everything said and done, his Bankai was not that impressive. It looks cool. I love that Kubo accentuates the horns a bit more in this chapter, so basically Kenpachi is the devil, but it's not that impressive. He didn't kill Gerard. Gerard's actually perfectly fine, and he's fucked himself, which is embarrassing, but oh well, whatever. Kubo is cycling through the fan favourites in this fight, which is bound to divide the fan base, because then they are the fan favourites, but they're not everybody's favourites. So basically, yeah, Kenpachi collapses to the floor, at which point he gets obliterated by Gerard. Gerard brings his sword down so hard that it creates a trench, and Kenpachi's body is like mashed. I'd say it's funny that Gerard happened to completely miss Kenpachi. Essentially, he just cut off his arm, so that was lucky. But Kenpachi's not in good shape, and I don't think he'll be getting up again for a little while. If he does, then I don't see how, because the entire side of his body's been raised, I think. Hitsugaya's like, oh no, Zaraki, and he's like, well, beaten up. And Gerard says, oh, you've still got breath in you yet, at which point he smacks Hitsugaya away. And so Gerard is pretty OP at this point. Like, it doesn't seem to me like anyone would be able to stand up to him, really. Byakuya then catches Hitsugaya with Senbon's Akira Kageyoshi, and I have to point out that Byakuya is incredibly, like, I don't give a fuck. Like, everyone's getting the crap beaten out of them. Byakuya just sort of, like, catches Hitsugaya and drops it on the building, like, he literally looks like he doesn't care about anything. I know it's Byakuya, but come on. I'm interested in seeing Byakuya get pushed to his limits, because at the rate Kubo's going with this, I think we probably will see the result of Byakuya's Royal Realm training being some new ability or something like that. Hitsugaya's petals continue to break, at which point Byakuya tells Hitsugaya to drop his Bankai because he's at his limit. Hitsugaya's like, no, and then he says, you know, I don't ever recall saying that when the last of my ice petals are shattered, that's the end of everything. Truth is, once the last petal disappears, that is truly when. And then on the next page, we see, dun dun dun, Hitsugaya is a fucking adult. I will admit, when I turned the page, I was like, what? Holy crap. This is kind of on the same level as Komamura becoming a human. Yeah, it was kind of like, holy shit. And I will admit, he looks cool. He basically looks like an ice version of Ichigo. I do like the frozen shoulder pads, that's cool. But we'll have to get a proper look next week. But he says Daigoren Hyorimaru has reached full maturity. So, has he always been able to do this? I've got a couple of things to say. First and foremost, I I think it is true. I don't think he does ever say that that's actually what happens to his Bankai. In his fight with Shorlong, it basically says, I think that's what happened. I think when you lose the petals, you lose your power. And I have to be honest, Hitsugaya reacts in such a way as to confirm those suspicions, but Kubo can retcon it if he wants. But Hitsugaya never actually explicitly says it, I don't think. I'm not 100% certain. Because he doesn't obviously, he uses his Bankai once in Soul Society arc, gets owned by Aizen, and then he uses it again, obviously, a lot in Ranker arc. I don't think he ever says it, but I'm not 100% certain. If he says it, please someone let me know in the comments below. But he looks cool, you know, fair enough, he looks cool. I saw an interesting theory on the internet. It's funny as well, because someone in the forums last week literally had this exact scenario. They said, when Hitsugaya's petals run out, I bet it's some kind of power-up. And clearly it is. Interesting that he's lost the wings as well. That's interesting. They seem to have just shrunk down to the shoulder pads, which I guess would make sense because, you know, in Bleach, the smaller your kind of ability appears to be, the more powerful it is generally speaking. But yeah, there's a theory on the internet that Hitsugaya is always supposed to look like this. It's just that his power is essentially crushing him. And that the fact that the petals have run out releases him from that, essentially, because it's weird that Hitsugaya doesn't grow despite the fact that he ages and everyone else does grow. I could buy that theory, but it's weird, like, there are obviously some weird circumstances behind this, like, why does Hitsugaya not let this happen? Why has he not let this happen before? Or is this a result of his completed Bankai that Kubo said we were going to get? I'm not sure. This is definitely kind of exciting, not really, because I don't really give a shit about Hitsugaya, but he looks cool. The problem is, Kubo created a cast of incredibly awesome, unique, and individual characters. They all had some kind of individual trait about them. Let's take, for example, Kenpachi, Hitsugaya, and I did have another one, Komamura, that's it. Komamura. So, the problem here is, the best way to get a twist out of these characters is to reverse that uniqueness. Hitsugaya, he's the only child captain. He's been the only child captain in the entire series. How do we get a moment out of the audience? Make him an adult. Kenpachi, only captain to not have a Bankai or even know the name of his sword. How do we get a moment out of the audience? Give him all of that. Komamura, again the same. Only captain who's an animal. How do we do that? Holy crap, he's suddenly a human. The problem with this is, it's removing these characters of their individuality. Kenpachi really is no different now from every other captain, essentially. You know, essentially he's no different. Hitsugaya is no longer, if he stays in this mode, is no longer the only child captain. He's just another pretty boy, you know. Komamura is slightly different. He became like everyone else, but then he's back to a dog again, so it's not so bad. Another one as well, I guess, would kind of be Ichigo, in that he didn't have an Asauchi, but now he's gone through the motions and he's just like everyone else. So, I mean, it's Kubo's prerogative, and he does get twists by doing it. Like, it's undeniable that people are like, holy shit at this, and with Kenpachi and stuff like that. But I do feel like it comes at a cost of removing some of the individuality from these characters. And admittedly, we are very close to the end of the series, so fair enough. Like, these are the kind of bombshells you would expect towards the end of the series. Some might argue it's the culmination of their character development. I mean, Kenpachi's case, yeah, Kenpachi's is probably the best one so far. It's the one that's been done the best. This one is a bit random, actually. And to be honest, who was asking for this? Like, seriously, who cares about this? Other than the massive Hitsugaya fans. I saw this and I was like, oh wow, that's weird. I did not expect that. But I'm not excited. That really. I'm interested to see how he looks next week and what he does. I imagine he's going to be super overpowered. But I still don't know how he's going to beat Gerard, since Gerard's unkillable. But, unless of course Hitsugaya has a conveniently placed god-killing sword. But no, seriously though, when I told one of my friends to read the chapter, their initial response was, this is like a bad fan fiction. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of see where they're coming from. Because you can totally imagine, like, some fan fiction writer who has this crazy obsession with Hitsugaya being like, what do I want to see most? Oh my god, Hitsugaya somehow becoming an adult. And that's essentially what's happened here. I'm sure Kubo will have a good reason for it. I'm sure if it is how Hitsugaya is supposed to have always looked, that would be interesting. But for me, it's a bit, I don't know, like Hitsugaya, despite the fact that I don't really like him at all, at least he was individual and he was a child, and like no other captain had that. But I will give Kubo his due. Hitsugaya looks cool, even if he doesn't look like Ichigo. But yeah, he does look quite cool, I suppose. Obviously, we'll give him next week as well to see what actually he can do. I mean, I'm expecting some flack for this opinion, but yeah, if I'm speaking honestly here, like I feel like Kubo does kind of remove some of the individuality from his characters by trying to pull out last-minute twists. But whatever, we'll see where it goes. I will admit, this fight, kind of disappointing. This fight is basically just showcasing the most popular characters, and Kubo essentially giving them a last hurrah. Where the fuck is Shinji, and where is Love? They both need to release their Bankai. We haven't seen either of them, and they've just been completely owned. You realise that this fight against Gerard that's been going on for ages now, the only thing Shinji does is try and save Hinamori before getting slapped. And then he's just out of it, and that's it. He hasn't come back yet. So, it seems ridiculous to me that Hitsugaya is like surviving massive hits with Gerard's Vollstandig, and then Shinji gets slapped and that's it, he's completely gone. So, yeah, I wish we were seeing characters we didn't see much of, like the Vizards, but this appears to be the Fan Fest parade. This is the fan favourite parade battle, so there's always one. Yami was the other one, even though we didn't really see that fight. So at least Kubo's actually dedicated panel chapters to this fight. But yeah, I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5, guys. It was disappointing to see Kenpachi just get completely wasted as well. That's another thing. Like, why remove the individuality if it's not even going to do anything? Like, it was completely worthless. It looked cool, but was that the point? You know, maybe just the point of Kenpachi's Bankai was to give him a chapter of looking awesome and for Kubo to tick that off his checklist, and then he just... Kenpachi needs to get fucked again now. Smack. So, yeah. I don't know. We'll see where this goes. I'm expecting a transformation of some kind for Byakuya as well at some point. But yeah, let me know in the comments below, guys, as always, what you thought of this week's chapter. I would appreciate them. And do leave a comment and subscribe and like to the video. There we go. Got to get back into the rhythm. I would appreciate it very much. Do you kind of agree with me? Do you feel like it's... Cheap seems a bit harsh, but that's the only word that's coming to mind at the moment. But yeah, let me know in the comments below, guys. Were you excited about this? Are you a Toshiro fan? How do you feel, if you're a Kenpachi fan, how do you feel about getting bitched immediately after bringing out a Bankai? I mean, seriously, like, Kenpachi's Bankai is the thing of legend, and he gets taken out a chapter after using it. I mean, that if you're a Kenpachi fan, which I'm not really, that must piss you off. But yeah, until next time, guys, see you later.